it really seems that in the middle of the wilderness, it feels like the wilderness is more of a graveyard than it is a maternity ward. It's the place that dreams go to die. It's not the place that dreams are birthed. You look at the story of Ezekiel. If you don't know his story, it's in the Old Testament. There's an entire book written about Ezekiel, and Ezekiel was a prophet. He came along after the children of Israel had been in the promised land, and Ezekiel came later. But when Ezekiel came, the children of Israel had fallen back into captivity. They'd fallen back into bondage, and now they were slaves to another nation. And it felt like they were never, ever going to get free again. And God gave Ezekiel this vision. And he takes him to this valley, and he goes and he looks at this valley, and in this valley, all he sees are human bones and human remains scattered as far as he can see. And God speaks to him and says, "This is my children. This is the nation of Israel, scattered as far as you can see." And he says to Ezekiel, "Do you think these bones can live again?" The God says the same thing to you about your dream, your heartache, your brokenness. Do you believe that that could get breath back in it and live again? Ezekiel's smart. Because Ezekiel says this, he says, I don't know, only you know. That's a great answer, by the way. And God says to him, here's what I want you to do, Ezekiel. I want you to speak to these bones. I want you to speak to these bones, and I want you to prophesy over them, and I'm going to put breath back in the lungs of them, and I'm going to bring them together. And Ezekiel obeys the Lord, and he speaks over the bones, and right in front of his eyes, one of the craziest stories in all the Bible, these bones start collecting together into a human, the skeletons and all this coming together, and then ligaments and muscles and organs and flesh, and then suddenly blood, and it rises up and it becomes this mighty army. It reminds me of the song that we just got done singing. Man, he turns graves into gardens. He turns bones into armies. That's where that line in that song comes from. This very story right here, it's in the wilderness that dead things come to life. It's in the wilderness where the miracles of God take place in your life. Think about it for a moment. If you're blessed right now, if you ain't got no problems, you ain't got no issues, why do you need a miracle? They call it a miracle for a reason, because you're in dire straits, because you're in a difficult spot.